In this episode of On Closer Inspection, we explore the Royal Australian Navy's Adelaide-class FFG frigate and take a closer look at HMAS Sydney. The Adelaide-class guided missile frigate was a class of ship in Royal Australian Navy service between 1980 and 2019. Based on the United States Navy Oliver Hazard Perry-class frigate and modified for Australian requirements, the Adelaide-class consisted of 6 ships. HMAS Adelaide, Canberra, Sydney and Darwin were built in the United States at the Todd Pacific shipyards in Seattle, while HMAS Melbourne and Newcastle were constructed later in Australia's Williamstown naval dockyards. HMAS Sydney was 138.1 metres long, with a displacement, equivalent to the weight of the ship, of 4,267 tonnes. Sydney had a full complement of 210 crew. The Adelaide-class frigate was the first Royal Australian Navy ship to be powered by gas turbine for the main propulsion. 2 forward-mounted retractable auxiliary propulsion units provided a secondary means of propulsion as well as excellent manoeuvrability in confined waters. The ship could reach a top speed of 29 knots, about 55 kilometres per hour, and travel a range of 4,500 nautical miles, which was about 8,300 kilometres. The ship had the capacity to carry and utilise 2 S-70B Seahawk helicopters, or 1 Seahawk and 1 AS-350B Squirrel helicopter. Sydney was equipped with 4 radar systems and 3 sonar systems, including mine avoidance and torpedo warnings, and the ability to jam enemy signals. HMAS Sydney was equipped with 8 12.7mm guns and 1 76mm gun, 6 Mark 32 torpedo tubes, Harpoon, SM-2 and Mark 41 missiles, a 20mm anti-missile system, 2 long-range rocket launchers, and sophisticated torpedo countermeasures. HMAS Sydney's state-of-the-art defence capabilities included a vertical launch system able to carry 32 Evolved Sea Sparrow missiles, ESSMs, designed to counter supersonic manoeuvring anti-ship missiles. ESSMs hit their targets with pinpoint accuracy using a semi-active radar homing system. Adelaide entered service in 1980. It was closely followed by Canberra in 1981, Darwin in 1984, Sydney in 1983, Melbourne in 1992, and Newcastle in 1993. Designed for long-range escort roles and equipped to undertake air defence, anti-submarine warfare, surveillance and reconnaissance duties, the Adelaide-class FFG is considered by many to be one of the most capable warships in the Royal Australian Navy's history. Between 1980 and 2018, Adelaide-class ships played a lead role in Australia's defence, peacekeeping and humanitarian aid operations. Adelaide-class frigates deployed to both Gulf Wars and were part of the East Timor Interfet Peacekeeping Task Force in 1999. They have played a key role in search and rescue operations, border control, and aid and disaster relief missions in our region. In May 1987, during the first Fijian coup, Sydney and her sister ship Adelaide were directed to sail off Lautoka. The vessels provided secure communications between the Australian High Commission in Suva and Canberra and were ready to aid the evacuation of around 5,000 Australian citizens if the situation worsened. Operation Morris Dance was the first operational deployment of an Australian infantry unit since the Vietnam War. Following the Bougainville uprising of January 1990, Sydney was placed on standby to evacuate civilians from the island. Sydney was stood down in February and was deployed to Turkey to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the landing at Anzac Cove. HMAS Sydney was deployed to the Middle East 4 times during the 1991 Gulf War and took part in Operation Desert Storm. She departed Sydney on the 12th of November in company with HMAS Brisbane and arrived home on 15 December, having completed 353 interrogations, 179 boardings and 113 visual identifications during the deployment. Sydney and Brisbane formed part of the largest grouping of warships seen since the end of the Second World War, including some 90 warships, more than 100 logistic, amphibious and smaller craft, and 800 aircraft from a multinational coalition of 15 nations. Operating primarily in the North and Central Arabian Gulf, Sydney was part of an air defence screen around Battle Force Zulu, which included 3 United States Navy aircraft carriers. Her other duties included search and rescue, aircraft control and the escort of detached units. This deployment was the Royal Australian Navy's first operational deployment of a mixed-gender crew, with females fully integrated into boarding party operations. One of Sydney's tasks was to enforce United Nations Security Council sanctions against Iraq by inspecting merchant shipping bound for the Jordanian port of Aqaba, which provided access to the land border between Iraq and Jordan. In September 2000, Sydney commenced Operation Gold, the Australian Defence Force's support to the Sydney Olympics and Paralympics. Sydney's role included acting as the Olympic guardship in Sydney Harbour and conducting presence and surveillance operations off the coast of Sydney. In 2009, Sydney and the Anzac-class frigate HMAS Ballarat departed from Sydney as part of Operation Northern Trident, a 6-month round-the-world voyage by the 2 vessels, with numerous diplomatic visits and joint exercises with foreign navies. On the 17th of May, Sydney and Ballarat provided aid to 2 merchant vessels in the Gulf of Aden, driving off 2 separate groups of Somali pirates attacking the ships. Sydney remained in the area while Ballarat escorted an impromptu convoy of 8 ships, including the 2 that were attacked, to safety. On 11 October 2001, Sydney deployed to the Arabian Gulf in support of Operation Slipper. Sydney served as part of the multinational interception force enforcing United Nations sanctions against Iraq. The crew received international praise for putting an end to the 10-year reign of an oil smuggling tanker in the Persian Gulf. Boarding operations were so successful that smugglers began using more desperate measures to avoid interception, such as covering windows and hatches with steel plating, removing access ladders, and spreading oil on decks. In 2011, in the wake of Japan's Fukushima earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear power plant disaster, a 14-person detachment from Sydney's crew travelled to Fukushima Prefecture to lend support to victims. Sailors provided gifts to children displaced by the disasters and assisted students during English language lessons. After decades of service, all 6 of the Royal Australian Navy's Adelaide class are now decommissioned. HMAS Sydney and Darwin were both broken up and sold as scrap in 2015 and 17, whilst HMAS Adelaide and Canberra were scuttled as dive wrecks. HMAS Melbourne and Newcastle were sold to the Chilean Navy and commissioned on the 15th of April 2020. Unbeknown to the Royal Australian Navy, when the main mast of HMAS Sydney 4 was being assembled, a group of ship workers, led by Alex Otero, placed a bottle of Canadian whisky and a silver dollar inside the mast, hoping that it would bring the ship good luck. Upon decommissioning, Mr. Otero took the opportunity to pass the story of the bottle on to the company which was engaged to scrap the ship. Workers carefully cut the mast, and the bottle of whisky was safely retrieved 35 years after it had been placed. The bottle was formally handed over to Chief of Navy Vice Admiral Tim Barrett for safekeeping and now resides in the Royal Australian Navy's Heritage Collection. While we will never know how much luck the bottle and silver dollar brought to HMAS Sydney, it's safe to say that it did no harm.